This is the journal of Harold Boom Boom Walsh. I was at one time an aspiring medical student. However, due to unforeseen misfortunes, I had to drop out of college and found myself installed in the occupation of a deputy sheriff when the worldwide outbreak struck the city of Nashville in inexorable force. I watched in helplessness and fear as the inmates became infected. Oddly, 3 of us seemed to be immune. 2 of us had tower duty, locked away from the rest when they started turning on each other. Other deputies fled for their lives and abandoned us. We managed to separate ourselves from the infected and were thus safe. Safe being a subjective state of mind. In summation, Sherry, my other co-worker, and I found ourselves with over 100 infected inmates. They were confined in their cells, of course, so we were relatively safe. There were so many of the infected roaming the streets of downtown Nashville, we did not dare go outside. We tried several times, but quickly turned back lest we succumb to a most unpleasant death. We had taken inventory of the food wares and found we had enough to feed us for several months. The water was still running and we had generators, so instead of seeking escape, we elected to lock ourselves in the jail. It was safer. I have started this journal on the 2nd week of our self-imposed quarantine. The infected inmates have not eaten food nor drank any fluids during this entire time. It is at this time when our experiments started. Almost all of the inmates are infected. We have one inmate who appears healthy, however, he is an intemperate sort. When I tried to check on him, he responded by throwing feces on me. I used a broom handle to slide his tray of food to him. He thanks me by throwing shit at me. The noises these things make, combined with the putrid odor, are enough to drive one mad. I hated it, but every time we attempted to go outside, the streets were roaming with those things. There were far too many. We were effectively trapped. Sherry and I broke open the evidence locker last night and found some marijuana. I think the weed, in combination with all of the moaning and shrieking, were the seeds for our idea. We had no idea why some people became infected and why others did not. There were many unanswered questions. Sherry thought of it first. I think there is an evil streak in her. She suggested we conduct experiments on the infected. She thought it would be amusing and a fun way to pass the time. I reluctantly agreed, but only because I thought it might help me understand this infection better. We started with sensory experiments. We would make noises at various ranges and at various distances. We would blink a flashlight on and off. We would use various things to induce motion stimuli. We tried to maintain scientific standards, but to be honest, we were lax. In summation, the infected inmates seemed to maintain most of their senses. Their sight, smell, and hearing seemed to remain intact with only a small amount of degradation. I've no idea about their sense of taste. The sensory experiments segued into other tests. We intentionally withheld food and water from them. It did not matter. 3 weeks later and they were still alive. When we would slide a tray of food or a cup of water through the slot, the infected inmates would ignore it and try to grab at us. The 2nd experiment was also initiated by Sherry. I had found the key to the armory and we had armed ourselves. Sherry had a Glock 40 caliber which she decided to experiment with. One of the infected inmates was a large muscular gangbanger in his 20s. Sherry began the experiment by aiming her weapon through the food slot and shooting him in the shins. He seemed oblivious to the pain and had repeatedly tried to attack us by slamming against the cell door. She giggled like a schoolgirl as she worked her way up his torso. The test subject finally collapsed when Sherry shot him between the eyes. We left him lying in the cell. He didn't move for several hours. We finally got up the nerve to open the cell door and check on him. We confirmed his status. He was